Hello, all, and I hope you're doing well. You might have seen it. Kenya is under fire. There have been some protests around the country by young people, the Gen Z, demanding, asking for the government to give them better opportunities for a better life. The new government under Ruto has steadily been losing control of the situation because of corruption. I've been there, I've talked to many people, everyone, even in Ruto land, Eldoret, talk to businesses to just ask them, and everyone is saying that life is hard under his leadership. There's no money, no business. Everyone is complaining. But you listen to MPs and what they say, or those people who are close to the government, they say, oh, don't worry, everything is okay. But then you go to talk to real business people, real people who are out there trying to improve their lives, and everyone, and it doesn't matter around anywhere. Go to Eldoret, go to Kisumu, every business person is saying the same thing. The conditions are just not good enough. But look at the people who are close to the president. Their lives are good. Ruto's life is good. MPs, their lives are good. That's why they're so clueless. They don't understand. This is what happens when someone is living such a good life, and then on the other side, average everyday people, they're just struggling to make ends meet. And Kenya is a country that is quite educated. Definitely one of the most high educated countries in the continent of Africa. But if things continue like this, with life getting as hard as it is, this might not be the case. Many countries around East Africa are now becoming wealthier than Kenya. These MPs, when you hear them talk, they say, oh, Kenya has a very advanced democracy. But it was not anymore. We are going behind very steadily. Things are getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And the worst part, or the best part, all this protests, they're very organic. These leaders, this MP, the president, is looking for the head of the movement so that they can take him out. But there's no head of the movement. Everyone is just analyzing their own lives and saying, oh, I have nothing. There's nothing I have. Literally, I'm looking at the prospects into my future and I don't see anything good. There's nothing to celebrate. So they're deciding, I don't care if I was to die. I'm just going to protest. Maybe something will change. Rather, to be honest, it is better sometimes to live a short life than live a long, empty life. If you can't feed yourself, you have no prospects for a job, you can't even start a family, you can't even think about that. What else is there for you to do? You can only this is what is radicalizing people, because just analyzing their own lives. But the leadership does not understand, and it's responding in the worst possible way. It's not creating jobs. It's not reducing corruption right now. It's in fact, they're getting worse. All they're doing is now pointing the gun at people. This is one way to surely guarantee that the president doesn't even finish his term, because how can people continue living like this? There's no food, there's no prospects. People cannot live like this. People will choose to die, or at least risk finding better leadership. So let's see the deaths, because there have been some deaths, unfortunately, which is, again, the government just showing its lack of wisdom, how to properly handle
with their bodies scattered along the road. 3 people died in Kiserian, while 3 people.
Commission on Human Rights now says that 10 people have been killed, but unofficial figures stand as high as 19 people dead following deadly clashes between police and protesters who turned up for the Sabasaba Day commemoration across the country. The sudden surge in police killings on a single day of protesting raises questions on the brutality meted on what began as a peaceful Sabasaba Day. Stephen Leto has the details.
Gunshots and smoke of tear gas dominated this year's commemoration of Sabasaba Day. A day that that seemed peaceful in the beginning turned chaotic, with protesters clashing with police officers, leaving a trail of death. In Kitengela, 21-year-old Brian Kimutai was shot 2 times and lost his life as fellow protesters rushed him to Kitengela Sub-County Hospital.
My younger brother pale wametulia, wamempiga risasi 2, moja hapa na nyingine kwa mgongo, na alikuwa ameinua mikono, hakuwa anafanya kitu, hakuwa anaharibu mali ya mtu, na alikuwa amepiga magoti akiinua mkono. Wametulia brother yetu, ule brother wangu mdogo bana anajitafutia, just justice for my brother.
Kimutai is just one of the 19 people who fell on Saba Saba Day. In Kangemi, 2 people were killed with 3 others seriously injured. 1 person also lost his life in Ol Kalau in Nyandarua County during the Saba Saba clash. 1 person also...
So, as you can notice immediately, these protests are happening all over the country. All over the country, people are just getting fed up. Young people are not having jobs. Young people are not seeing a positive prospect when they analyze their lives. And then they're seeing these MPs, they're seeing the leadership enjoying life, literally living in a completely different universe, completely detached from reality. And you're wondering, what's wrong with these MPs? They're literally deluded. They don't understand the pain. And they don't want to shape up. They're really enjoying this really a high level of corruption. It's out of this world. The amount of money you see these politicians getting, and you're like, wow, it's just ridiculous. So there's this detachment from reality, from the leadership. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of electoral democracy. Why? Because with the electoral democracy, the citizenry has to be super hyperactive, especially in Africa. At least in the West, when a policy is not working, you see presidents step down. How many in the UK? How many times have we seen the previous? Is it the Prime Minister? They just stepped down. There was Sunak. There was what's that woman? They all step down. They try and the policies are not working, then they step down. In which country in Africa can you see that? Can you see a good leader stepping down when the policies are not working? Never. So the citizenry have to be proactive. They now step up, step out into the world, protect, demand better conditions. And this is how democracy, at least electoral democracy, for it to be effective, the politicians have to be on the edge of their toes. Otherwise, they don't work. Otherwise, they don't work for the people. They're just sitting there, especially in Africa, getting rich, stealing as much as they can, enriching themselves. This is what they do. They don't care about the rules. They don't care about nothing. So in Africa, for it to be honest, in any democracy, for them to be truly work for the people, they have to be on the edge of their seat. Always. That's the only thing that will motivate them to work for the people. And we've all heard Ruto's campaign when he was running for president. This guy was such a sweet talker, so there's no excuse. He was sweet talking because he understands the pain of the people. He understands the struggles that people are going. He's this Ruto. One thing, he's not stupid. This man is very, very, very intelligent. And he understands, but at the same time, he's also quite manipulative, unfortunately. Because the way he was speaking in the campaign, he obviously understood the pain of the people. But once he came into power, he forgot about those promises. He forgot about everything. So let's see what the Interior Minister has said. Our security agencies remain in high alert, with criminals and other malicious elements who may infiltrate peaceful marches to cause chaos and disorder or destruction. May attempt. So there we go. The Interior Minister says that they want to fight against infiltration. Of course, there's some criminal elements who go and damage businesses. This is absolutely unacceptable. And they should be stopped. But one thing the government shouldn't forget is that people's lives are hard and they have to do something about it. I've talked to some people who are close to the government, and you can hear there's a really high level of corruption. I don't know how people can do it. Personally, I honestly cannot stand corruption. And it seems the young Gen Zs do not also stand for that, and they're demanding better government. The only thing that matters in Africa, to be honest, in any country, doesn't matter whether it's whether they have elections or whether they don't have elections, good governance and economic development. And this is not what I said. This is what Lee Kuan Yew, the only man in history who's ever moved our country from being completely under-industrialized, a small village town in Singapore, to our first world country in one lifetime, 40 years. He was able to change this in one country. And this is what he says the most important things: good government and economic development. Do you see that? Do you see that in Kenya? Is there good government? Why is there corruption? There's so much chaos, and it's not like a few years ago under mwika.eugene when things were starting to set up, business was flowing, people are seeing their lives improve. No, we don't see that anymore. And Kenya is going to lose credibility. No one is going to want to invest in the country because of the instability. Economic is not going anywhere. But Ruto is very, very, very intelligent. So he's consolidated power around himself. He just recently announced a new someone in the army, the leader is lieutenant general. Yeah, he just appointed a new lieutenant general, again consolidating power so that he has the army. The army is supposed to fight enemies, invaders, but is this a clue that he's about to turn the army against his people? He's consolidated power around the parliament, where it seems everyone in the parliament, no one is standing with the protesters. It seems like all the MPs, they seem to all be standing with the government. None of them is standing with the people. So he's very intelligent, but he's forgotten that for democracy to truly work, you need mass support. That is a key to democracy. Mass support. Actually, not even key to democracy, key to any leadership to maintain power. You have to have mass support. And how do you have mass support? To be honest, you have to improve people's livelihood. Because I have talked to people in Eldoret, where the president is from. No one there is also saying, oh, at least he's developing our area. No, even the people there are saying their lives are just too hard. So that's the situation we have in Kenya. So I'm going to move to another story from our motherland. So this year is African volunteers arrive in Melitopol to take part in a humanitarian initiative. Have you ever seen that? African people going to Europe to volunteer. So Melitopol is a town in Russia, and a group of Africans has arrived in Melitopol to participate in a humanitarian initiative, Africa Initiative reports. This trip was organized by Deputy Dmitry Kuznetsov of African Initiative, Melitopol State University, Bryansk State Engineering and Technological University, International Project, volunteering for of the world. The idea of holding such events was proposed by Dmitry Kuznetsov. In African traditional spiritual value are deeply rooted in African and spirituality-oriented people. Let's give them opportunity to help people in Russia. So yeah, it seems like they're creating opportunities for African people in Russia to go and help the volunteer in helping, usually more so for care work. As part of the mission, African volunteers will take part in social and charitable projects, including assistance to elderly people and large families in the village of Voznesenka and other settlements. They are also expected to participate in the humanitarian center of Zaporozhye region. Zaporozhye is part of those regions in Ukraine that has been annexed by Russia. And from what I gather, the people there were really suffering under the Ukrainian leadership because they speak Russian, and Ukraine was mistreating them because it was considering them not part of Russia. All right, another interesting story Ghana and Burkina Faso are now being linked together as there would now be direct flights between the capital of Ghana and Burkina Faso. African World Airlines launched direct flights between the capitals of Ghana and Burkina Faso, Accra and Ouagadougou. All right, that's interesting. And this one is actually a heartbreaking story because it's about how many African countries actually do not print their own passports, especially those in the Francophone countries. So let's take a look at this story. Passport leech, how European manages African personal data. So yeah, most countries, part of being a sovereign country is printing your own passport, printing your own money. But in Francophone Africa, these countries got independence, but they couldn't print their own money, they couldn't control their own money, and they couldn't control their passport. So their personal data is controlled by France. In recent years, many African countries have significantly reduced their dependence on former colonizers, yet some subtler ties to their metropoles persist. Even an alliance of Sahel states, which has moved closer to Russia, remains on France's digital leash. Biometric documents for numerous African countries are issued by Western companies, depriving former colonies of sovereignty over other citizens' personal data, providing European intelligence services with a wealth of advantages. African Initiative examines the risk posed by cooperating between African and French in passport production, exploring possible solutions and considering whether Russia could assist. So why does France produce passports? During the colonial era, European metropoles did not establish manufacturing industries or export technologies to Africa, which compounded the continent's technological lag. In the early 21st century, biometric passports began to be introduced worldwide, storing personal information on a chip. The production of such documents require complex infrastructure, manufacturing facilities, advanced security technologies, and specialized personnel. France became a world leader in secure printing and electronic documents. Among the most prominent passport and ID producers are IDEMA and Thales Group. These corporations have secured government contracts for at least 13 African governments. In the worst case, they produce documents on behalf of Africa. In the best, they assist in localizing production within Africa. The institutionalized leakage of personal data from Africa began in the mid-2000s and continues today. For example, in Morocco, the French government company Gemalto helped to establish the electoral document issues. In Algeria, Gemalto participated in building infrastructure for biometric insurance. France collaborates with African countries on passport production for political and economic influence and to gain access to sensitive and confidential information, said Lunda Wright, Chief Information Officer at South Africa's Insidious Technology, in an interview with African Initiative. The main benefit for France lie in maintaining political and economic control in its former colonies under conditions that favor French interests more than those of Francophone African, explained the expert. According to Wright, although the personal data of clients of French companies should be protected by the EU General Data (GDPR), cannot guarantee complete protection against data leakage. So yeah, imagine your passport, you live somewhere in Africa, you apply for a passport, the government sends the document there, and they process your fingerprints so they know you. And from what we know about this agency, they always leak it to the government. So the French government knows your face, knows everything about you. In particular, there is an ongoing dispute over how IDEMA, which is close ties to France, handled the personal data of Malian citizens under its contracts with the Malian government for passport creation and other identity services, the South African specialist said. The crux of the issue lies in the fact that AES leadership chose French contractors to produce e-identity documents for the Federation. These documents are needed to strengthen unity among Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger to enhance freedom and movement within the new bloc. However, in 2023, AES head and Malian President Assimi Goïta criticized IDEMA, claiming that the company conducted a population census in Mali and withheld the data. Consequently, the elections in Mali were allegedly postponed. Ultimately, Bamako received the census data, but elections did not take place. IDEMA denied all accusations, stating that it never impeded access to Malian biometric data. So, you see, now they lie. They say we never denied you, but usually they wanted to twist the arms. They wanted to twist the arms of Mali because they don't approve of the Malian government. They don't want a government for Africa by Africa. They just want a puppet government that they can control. Biometric passport production in Benin is handled by the French company In-Group in collaboration with the Department of Immigration and Immigration. The state body responds for passport insurance in West Africa countries. In-Group is also working on similar projects with Gabon, Senegal, and Cote d'Ivoire. For the latter country, passport services are also provided by the Georgian company Zetes. Belgium contractors produce passports in approximately 7 African countries, including the former DRC. German companies, according to African Initiative, are active in 8 countries. Wow. Also, Belgium producing passports for Congo. The United Kingdom has similarly provided technological support for some former African colonies. In Sierra Leone, passports were produced by a branch of the UK company De La Rue, but it was later replaced by French Gemalto. What is the problem with passports being produced abroad? According to Ivan Laksharev, Associate Professor of Political Theory at MGIMO, in today's world, passport is more than just a document. It is the key to personal, political, and legal identity and confirms their connection to a state. That is why the concept of passport sovereignty is fundamental. It defines who can obtain citizenship under what terms. Without full passport sovereignty at state, risk dependency on external actors. If a state lacks passport sovereignty, many factors can affect its relationship with citizens, from delays to blank passports to delivery, increased production costs. It is not yet a colonial dependence, but is a dependence in itself, the expert stated in an interview with African Initiative. If you think that these companies are not sharing the data with the French German government, you must be drinking something. There are security and confidential risks. France and other Western powers could exploit African passport production in various ways. First, it's issuing documents to intelligence officers and private military companies to conceal real nationalities and conduct various operations in Africa. Wow, that is very good point. They issue passports to random people. These companies for people who want to sneak into another country, sneak into Africa when they want to send militias into the Sahel. They send militias with fake passport. They pretend to be from a certain country and they're not. And because these companies are officially contracted with the government of the country, they would never know. It would seem as the official paper, and you would never know. It's completely unacceptable for African countries. We need to wake up. We need to take our own issues into our own hands. And especially the older generation in Africa, they just trust everything that is white. They have no real self-confidence of who you are. This is what is so lacking in our continent. People do not have confidence in their abilities. They do not have confidence but in who they are, in what they can achieve. But it's the same everywhere. Every countries that are not European, they have to struggle with this self-confidence. You have to later realize, oh, I'm just as good. In fact, I can be better than the white man. You need to find that confidence within yourself, right? And Western Europe, they do not have this problem of low self-confidence, always asking yourself, are you good enough? But we have to prove to ourselves that we can develop by our own hands. Can we see an African country industrialized completely? We have to prove this. And this is just one example of how to start taking steps in our own hands. Processing personal data, especially biometric data, holds not only legal but strategic significance for state and citizen security in the digital age. African Initiative spoke with Pavel Novozilov, head of information security and audit department at Infosystems JSC. Third countries can gain influence over individuals or even societies from mass targeted impact to potential blackmail, said Novozilov. Ivan Noshkalev pointed out that since passport production falls under French jurisdiction, French intelligence and other security agencies can access the data and track issued documents. The Africanist asserted that due to the complexity of writing African names and surnames in French transcription, errors occur in the data. These inaccuracies may result in undocumented crossings of international borders by passport holders, creating a new security challenges. Can you imagine You cross the border, you go to another country. Then as you're crossing, they look at your passport and your birth certificate, and they don't match. Then all of a sudden you're stranded. These views are shared by information and cybersecurity experts Andrew Masala-Koch. Anything that ends up in the hand of any structure in a state, whether public or private, becomes known to that state's intelligence services. All those who receive these biometric French passports will be logged in France databases and those of its partners in various spy agencies. Some people might think, oh, this is data, it doesn't matter. Bruh, data is the currency of the future. With data, you're able to shape up the future. With data, you are able to determine your own destiny. If you control your part of your own destiny, and they will be spying on you. You don't know what information they might even be able to start getting DNA, and you don't know what they will be doing because the history of medical tests is not good. Let's not even go to profiling. Masalovic suggested that biometric data could potentially be manipulated. In his opinion, it is possible to engineer situations of demand in which certain individuals become invisible to surveillance cameras by substituting their personal data. Handling of a sensitive information to foreign entities immediately creates a wide range of threat. The concerns voiced by African Initiative interviewees and supported by the history of biometrics in Algeria. In 2009, the country selected 3 French companies, Kinetics, particularly owned by the French Ministry of Defense, and Obathu and Favre to produce its passport. Soon afterwards, Obath acquired an American investment fund through Rothschild Bank, and Favre was taken over by another Rothschild associate entity. Alarmed by these developments, the Algerian authorities opted from the Franco-Dutch company Gemalto, which however turned out to be a shareholder in Kinetics. Later, inscription keys from Gemalto chips ended up in the hands of the US National and the UK's Government of Communication (GCHQ), as revealed by former NSA employee Edward Snowden. The company admitted that its chips had been compromised, but Algeria quietly let the matter drop and ultimately entrusted Gemalto with document production in its own territory. In 2017, Gemalto was acquired by a French corporation, Thales. Wow, you would think Algeria would learn a lesson. You've seen that your data has been compromised. You think they would learn a lesson, but they don't. This is why you want to have good leadership that has the people's interest at heart, not just the corporations. Maybe the governments or the officials there got paid off. That's why they didn't correct this very serious error of leaking your data to a foreign company. How can these problems be solved? Today, many developed countries, including Russia, have their own systems for producing passports to ensure the security and confidentiality of personal data. According to Loshkasev, localizing passport production outside former metropoles could help African countries become more independent and secure. Producing passports outside the former metropole could strengthen the sovereignty of African states. Ideally, the localization of production within Africa itself and inclusion in the Agenda 2063 will be the best solution, the expert says. The ideas of creating a single passport standard for African states is actively discussed by the African Union members within the framework of the Agenda 2063, a set of initiatives adopted by the AU leaders in 2015 advanced in continental development. My problem with African Union, it is funded by European Union, so the issues being discussed there obviously skewed in favor of the European Union. African Union is supposed to be an instrument for African integration, but it doesn't seem organic. It seems something that is coming from the top rather than from the bottom up. Many of us Africans, we believe in the Pan-Africanist Union movement where Africa should unite, but it doesn't feel like we're ready. Go to a village in Rwanda, talk to the average person. They're afraid of foreigners. They're afraid of other Africans. We're not ready yet for African unification, and not, in my opinion, not yet. It's not yet. The production technology will most likely still be imported, meaning that passport dependence could simply be replaced by technological interdependence. According to Lunda Wright, it was natural for African countries to turn to their former metropolis given the established relationship, but since these post-colonial ties are fundamental exploitative, such cooperation must be approached with caution. When a country lacks its own capabilities to produce advanced technologies, the first priority should be choosing a reliable partner. Then the terms of cooperation will be fair and the South African expert suggested. Lunda Wright believes that South Africa is a key player in African diplomacy with long-standing investment in advanced technologies and a deep understanding of the consequences of colonialism. In his own view, South Africa will be the best partner for passport production and other identity services among African states. However, he also noted that other countries in Europe and Asia have strong technological capabilities that have proven themselves trustworthy partners and allies for the African countries. I have to be honest, when I think of African ally, I have to think about someone who was always pro-independence, someone who was always wanted to see Africa independent. So I would suggest Russia. I would suggest India has always been an ally of Africa. China has always been an ally of Africa. They're always fighting for independence, even back then in the 60s and 50s, when you were still many African countries were still under occupation by foreign and settlers. In Russia, passport production is mainly handled by state-owned enterprises and specialized organizations. One of the key players is the Federal State Unitary Enterprise, Gaznak, which provided a full cycle of services related to the design, production, and management of secure documents at the highest level. Russia already has experience of international cooperation in passport documenting production. For example, BioLink Solutions LLC, one of the leading Russian IT companies, partnered with Senegal to develop and implement systems for electronic biometric passports. The company was responsible specifically for the biometric components of the systems, namely the collection, management, and matching of Senegalese fingerprints. Cybersecurity expert Masalovich believes that Russia could readily replace France not only in the production of biometric passport but also other IT sectors. He noted that the half of African countries authorized are eagerly awaiting Russian specialists as their existing IT systems are beginning to fail as there is no one to maintain them. In fact, this is a serious issue. IT in Africa is very low, and this can be said or proven by the fact that China donated the African Union building in Addis Ababa in 2011, but it was only until 2018 that African Union noticed that China had left a bug in the software where you could spy on. So China, whatever was being discussed, China was monitoring this. Although China is an ally, they're always going to be driven by their self-interest. Although Russia is an ally, he's always going to be driven by self-interest. If you're going to outsource passport production, it should be to other African countries so that we can keep this within Africa, so that at least we can trust each other. But unfortunately, and it's also be a good business opportunity, but within Africa, maybe there is not that much trust for intra-continental trade. Trade has to go to Europe before it comes back to Africa. Africa only trusts the white man, and I'm talking about the elites, because the everyday people, they trust other Africans more than they trust foreigners, and this is just a part of human nature. You see, Europeans, they resonate more with the Ukrainian crisis, whereas Africans resonate more with the crisis in Congo, with the crisis in Sudan. This is just human nature. You resonate more with the people who you see yourself more in who they are. Right, let's talk about some other interesting news in the continent. This is really sad. 6 people were killed in Burundi over witchcraft accusation. This is unfortunate. This shows again the superstition nature of many African countries. I believe in customs. You should keep African customs as festivals, something that bring us together, something, to be honest, that creates economic opportunities. I'm gonna say about a country in in Northern Europe. Estonia, I believe, they did not have any cultural festivals, but they just made one out of thin air. They're like, okay, on this day we're all gonna wear pink t-shirts, and that is a festival for them, and they celebrate, and it creates a big opportunity for the market. There's more sales. But we in Africa, where we're very rich in plenty of cultural events, we don't celebrate them. We should celebrate them, but at the same time we have to accept science. This is how you move forward. This is how you industrialize. This is how you improve the livelihoods of your own people. This is how people have a happy life, by accepting science, technology, and losing that superstition. But don't lose the cultural stuff. Like, okay, let's say in every March on 4th is a celebration of witchcraft, or some kind of festival that brings people together and can be celebrated and attract tourists because of the celebration. Look at what other countries are doing. Learn from them. This is what I'm for, rather than killing people because of witchcraft. This just shows again that we have a lot of work. We have quite backwards, especially in the villages, and people getting killed for witchcraft. This is stuff that was happening in Europe in the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s, 1500s, a long time ago. So consider, if that's the kind of things they were doing back then, how long it will take for us to move forward. I don't want to say we have to wait for 400 years, because we can have a great leap forward in terms of opening our minds and starting to thinking more rationally rather than superstitiously. All right, this is quite a bad story here. So US transfers 8 migrants from its base in Djibouti to South Sudan. Homeland Security Department says the 8 convicted migrants from Vietnam, Cuba, and Laos, Mexico, and Myanmar were finally deported after a legal battle and weeks of detention at the US military base in Djibouti, the US Department of Homeland said. So we've all seen Trump. He's kicking everyone out. Everyone who's not an American citizen and they've been there illegally, they're all being kicked out. But he has sent these people, 8 people, he has sent them to South Sudan. They were stuck in Djibouti, but the Supreme Court passed a law that allowed the deportation of certain migrants to third countries. And what's crazy, there's only one South Sudanese. But the South Sudanese government has said that it's going to take these people and accept them into its country. South Sudanese people, as you would imagine, they are not happy. They can accept the South Sudanese person, but these are the criminals. They do not want them in their country, because these countries, the Laos, Vietnam, they have refused them. They said, we're not going to take these people, but South Sudan has accepted. Can you imagine? This is a government. I hope they were paid or something, because this is absolutely unacceptable. Why do you take people of a foreign country? But the South Sudanese government has said that these people will serve their sentence in South Sudan, but after that, who knows what will happen? Will they be released in South Sudan? These are the things that we don't know. So, Botswana and Malawi seal a historic deal to boost trade and food security and sustainable fisheries. Botswana President Duma Gideon Boko arrived in Malawi for an official visit for a special guest at Malawi's 61st Independence Day. During Boko's visit, the sides signed 2 provisional memorandum of understanding. Yes. So the key goals of the MOU were to enhance food security, promote climate change, and empower farmers, women, and youth. Right. All right. President Trump has had some incredible threats, like he has been. This guy is a media manager. That's all he does. He just wants to be in the news every day. And this is what he said. Any country aligning themselves with the anti-American policies in the BRICS will be charged additional 10% tariff. This will not be an exception to the policy. There will be no exceptions to the policy. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Whenever he says something that is quite aggressive, he always says, thank you for your attention to this matter. So, how many African countries are in BRICS? We have Egypt, we have Ethiopia, and we have South Africa. But also there are other partner countries that are just partners but are not fully, they can participate in the meetings but they cannot vote. We have Uganda and Nigeria as well. They were added as partner but they have not yet become full members. This is a pretty incredible video of which can help you. Look at this.
C'est bon, il a le bébé dans les bras,
Au nom de Dieu, qu'est-ce qui se passe?
Ils sont au 6e étage. Là, ils vont faire sortir les garçons.
There's fire.
Il y avait un autre bébé encore.
Il y a 2 bébés.
Il y avait 2 bébés. Lui, il doit avoir un
He's
enfant.
helping.
Ok.
Helping 2 kids escape.
Oui, en fait,
Wow.
il y a le voisin
The bravery.
du bâtiment
Au
à
nom
côté,
de Dieu,
il a
the
retiré les
bravery.
enfants.
The
Là, il y a les
bravery
2
of
bébés
this
qui sont
gentleman.
sortis.
Wow.
Non, qu'est-ce qui se passe? Putain.
Wow.
Oui. Là, c'est bon, c'est bon. Le 3e enfant, il est passé.
That's the second kid.
Et là, il y a le
There's
4e enfant
another
qui est en train de
kid.
passer. Ils sont en train de... Monsieur le fait, il est en train de descendre dans les
My
bâtiments d'en bas.
goodness.
Ça a touché le 2e étage. Et le 3e étage, enfin, c'est en train de toucher tous les étages là.
My goodness. Another kid
Et je peux dire quoi aux gens? Oh,
saved some lives. Wow. Incredible. This guy. Amazing. Not all heroes wear caps.
Personne ne s'était là pour l'instant, tout le monde est en
là,
train
pour
de rentrer
l'instant,
de
personne n'a
And
sorti.
then someone's mother. Wow.
Là, c'est bon. C'est bon. Au 6e, tout le monde est sorti. Tout le monde est sorti au 6e étage. Là, tout le monde est sorti au 6e étage. Mais au 3e étage, il y a 2 hommes encore qui galèrent à sortir.
Oh, I hope they don't get paralyzed by fear. Oh, yeah.
Mais qu'est-ce qu'il fait?
Non, mais il faut pas qu'il descende, il va se faire mal.
Mais qu'est-ce qu'il fait?
Comment il s'appelle? En fait, c'est l'ami à papa, lui. Descends pas!
Monsieur!
My good.
Mais putain, descends pas! Non! Descends
He's
pas!
telling him not to jump.
Ils arrivent!
Les pompiers arrivent!
Ils arrivent!
Monsieur!
He's telling him the firefighters are
Putain, mais
coming.
il va...
Mais c'est quoi là?
Oh
Oh
mon
my god. Oh my god.
Oh, mais... Oh, mon...
Don't jump.
Descends pas! Remonte!
Monsieur, les pompiers arrivent!
The firefighters are coming.
Bon, c'est bon, là.
My goodness. Wow. All right. So in other news from the continent, heavy flooding has displaced 4,000 people in Cape Town, South Africa. We've been seeing a lot of flooding all over the world. There's flooding in the USA. There's been flooding in South Africa. There's been flooding in China, in Spain. Climate change is truly happening, and it's crazy that, well, that Mr. Trump does not believe that it is happening. And another news, Ethiopia to export soybean meal to China amid trade war with USA. So China was importing a lot of soybean from the USA, but because of a clash between the two countries, China is starting to look for other reliable partners. So it's looked for Brazil to buy. It's also looking now to buy from Ethiopia. And if you're in Africa and you want a good opportunity, planting soybean might just be it, because you'll have a good buyer in China. Right. All right. This is just more of the craziness that happened in Sabah, which we have already covered. So there it is. That's the roundup for today's news. Thank you very much. Please leave a like and subscribe. And until the next time, I shall see you. Thank you again. And I appreciate giving me your time today. Thank you.